Why do we love video games? Personally, I love them because it's a medium that allows me to express my emotions without any restraint, whether it be joy, excitement, anger, or sadness. And today, I want to focus on that emotion. I want to talk about those video game moments that hit me like a truck. And I don't mean like, damn, that was sad. Anyway, time to replay Metal Gear Rising Revengeance. I'm talking about those moments that left me devastated for days. I'm sure many of you know exactly what I'm talking about. And well, before we begin, I just want to remind you, due to the nature of the video, there's gonna be spoilers for many different games. But as usual, there's gonna be fair warnings down here. If you're fine with that, then let's begin. I've been thinking on which video game was the first one to ever make me cry, and two candidates showed up: Zelda The Wind Waker and Sonic Adventure 2. I think Wind Waker was the first time I cried, but mostly because I was so happy to finally beat it, while Sonic Adventure 2 utterly demolished me. Take in mind, I was a kid at the time, but back then, and even today, because holy shit I love this game, I was so invested in the story, the gameplay, the Chao Garden and all the characters. The one I liked the most was Shadow, not only because he was this cool and mysterious newcomer, but because, even as a kid, I could tell that Shadow was different from the rest of the cast. He was my first exposure to what would you call character development. It was hard not to like Shadow, becoming more endearing the more I learned about him. So comes the final story of the game, and I was so fucking hyped! With all the stakes, the levels, Shadow getting even more incredible moments, and live and learn playing during the final boss, my 10-year-old self couldn't contain so much excitement! I was expecting one of the coolest and most satisfying endings I will witness so far, only to be greeted by one small twist.
Maria, this is what you wanted, right? This is my promise I made to you.
Can you imagine? Can you even picture how this moment made me feel? Actually, I bet you can. But I was utterly broken by Shadow dying after spending so many hours getting to know him. And the sad music playing during the credits didn't help either. As a kid, I remember replaying Sonic Adventure 2 just to see if there was an ending where Shadow survived, because I was that affected. But after some time passed and I learned there were more games with Shadow in them, I got over it. But I'll always remember how hard this scene broke me the first time. And nowadays, I only cry because Sega keeps insisting that Shadow remains a shitty Vegeta wannabe clone, while stripping him of everything that made him so likable. Final Fantasy XV. I don't care how divisive this game is. I won't pretend it's a masterpiece or anything, but I still love it so much. My main reason for that is because I'm a massive fan of the main party: Noctis, Gladio, Ignis and Pronto. I can't pick a favorite because they're all so equally likable to me and their relationship is so organic. I have many problems with the game's story, but the one thing I'll forever praise is how real the interactions between these four are, so it shouldn't come as a surprise that the game constantly puts that friendship to the test. There's this section where Ignis loses his vision and everyone starts falling apart. That moment affected me in many ways, I even talked about that in an older video. However, while this section of the game felt unreal, it didn't exactly destroy me emotionally, because by the end, the friends managed to overcome their difficulties and grow as a result. What I didn't expect though, is that this was the build-up for the real pain. The whole endgame from Final Fantasy XV, while it is epic, it's also incredibly sad. From the scarred characters, the destroyed world, the villain, and the whole reason you've been fighting for, you know this is in a story that will end in a happy note no matter what happens. This entire section is nothing but a ride of sorrowful tears. From Noctis telling his friends to walk tall and saying goodbye to them, to him sacrificing himself to defeat Orden, there's never a moment to rest those eyes. That is, until the credits end and you get a final scene of Noctis with his friends in the afterlife. And I can't even describe it. There's not much dialogue, but every word that is said here shakes you to the core because it's so heartfelt. The ending of Final Fantasy XV is perfect because it's a genuine reflection of how far these characters have come together, and I believe any person can put themselves in their shoes. This scene was so simple, yet it was strong enough that it left me marked for life. Persona 3. This game surprised me with one simple fact. Even before playing it, I knew many of the most crucial spoilers either because of memes or a slip of tongue from someone else. But said moments still impacted me because they were so well executed. That's why I still think highly of this game, unlike a certain number 5. But let's not waste time on that topic. That's why I have an old video about it. I think it's pretty obvious. I was gonna mention the ending of Persona 3. And how could I not? Even though I knew what was gonna happen, even though I knew exactly how it was gonna play out, I still found myself bawling in the end. Because this cutscene is incredibly beautiful and emotional. I especially have to give credit to Aegis's voice actress, because her performance gave an extra oomph to this cutscene as you die in her arms. The song Memories of You that plays during the credits also helped to make this moment hit harder. And honestly, there's not much to discuss here. You don't need to go that deep to understand why the ending of Persona 3 is as good as it is. It makes sense, it's in tone with the game's theme, and everything from the atmosphere, the voice acting, and the context of the scene come together to deliver a moment that sticks with you for a very long time. I repeat, even though I already knew what was gonna happen, you die, I still think fondly of this ending many years after I experienced it for the first time. And that gives it an extra edge over other sad moments in video games. NieR, the game series I can only describe as pain, agony even, suffering if you will. Because from beginning to end, these games slap you with loss, fear and existential crisis. There are so many moments I can take from these two because they all constantly hit me in different ways. But for the sake of the video, I'm gonna give the spotlight to NieR Replicant. Two specific moments that completely broke me. The shipwreck section and the Emil sacrifice. The shipwreck because it's an achievement in storytelling. It revolves around this young girl called Louise.
¡Eh, mi tocaya!
That turns out to be a monster. There is a great build-up to this mystery that had me hooked the whole way through. I felt genuine fear when I saw all those corpses in the ship. And the ensuring fight that happened once I found Louise was easily my favorite in the whole game. And that song that plays in the background? Oh, immaculate. But what makes this story so heartbreaking is the lore behind it, as multiple playthroughs let you get a better grasp of what happened there. It's funny, because the first playthrough alone already makes this one of the best parts of the game. It's so epic and full of mystery, but by the end of it, one gets the feeling that Louise was different from other shades. The second playthrough goes more in depth on how she came to know the postman. These moments are so touching because you feel a real connection to these characters. How she learns to trust him, how she learns to sing, how she tries to write letters for him and become more human. Those moments are great, but they're also sad because A. She still ate innocent people, and B. You know she can't become human no matter what methods she tries. She will never be able to live with the only person who has understood her. But it's the fact that she still holds to that hope that makes the second playthrough incredibly painful. And that's even reflected in her fight. The third playthrough doesn't add too much except for one change. On your second run, you learn that Kaine found a letter that Louise wrote for the postman. If you fail to stop her final wave attack during her fight, Kaine simply breaks the letter. But if you manage to stop her, you learn what the letter said, and the end result fucking broke me.
Oh, it says, thank you. After all that time I spent trying to teach her to write, she actually managed to string together a few ugly little letters.
As for the Emil sacrifice, well, it's Emil sacrificing himself. What else do I need to say? If you saw my previous video, you know how much I adore this character. So this cutscene of him fearing his own death is soul-crushing. Even if you know he's fine at the end of the second playthrough, it's the character itself and how he reacts to his situation what makes the cutscene so heartbreaking. It never gets any easier. Yoko games are known for how they fuck you up in different ways, but I believe it's a fuck well worth experiencing.
Maybe I should be more careful with how I word my scripts.
Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Torna, the Golden Country. Another moment that doesn't have much science behind it, but it still hurts like hell! Hence why in the video I made about that game I started this recurring joke. Torna is an incredibly unique case, because this isn't a situation like Persona 3 where the big moments can be spoiled to you from someone else. No. If you played Xenoblade Chronicles 2 beforehand, you know everything that's gonna happen. The Fallen Kingdom of Torna, the Legend of Adam, the ultimate fate of Laura. These are things you know are gonna happen at some point. And it's funny, because that ironically makes you believe you're in some sort of alternate continuity, where the heroes will somehow manage to turn the tables on Malos, the best fucking antagonist ever, holy shit. But no. Everything will play out exactly as you know it. The Torna Titan will fall, Adam will seal Pyra for 500 years while disappearing from the public eye, Hugo tragically dies, therefore erasing all of Brigitte's and Aegeon's memories, Hayes will be reborn as Fanla Norn, become lobotomized by Amalthus, and ultimately get killed, while Jean needs Laura in order to preserve his memories of her, and... fuck! Even the new things that were added for this game hurt like fucking hell! Milton. I remember when I was streaming Torna on my Twitch channel, which you should totally follow by the way, and I said, okay, I know who all these characters are, but I can't recognize Milton, was he mentioned in 2? Only to realize during the ending why he was important, and let me tell you, Mitra's reaction to his fate summed up my feelings incredibly well. And dare I say that unlike Final Fantasy XV or Persona 3, there's not really a bittersweet feeling here, it's just straight sadness, because most of these new characters you came to know and love in such a short amount of time all share the same fate, tragedy. How can you not feel emotionally scarred after that? It's impressive when the developers themselves spoiled you an entire story, and said story still manages to have the saddest moments in the entire series. And you know which other moment rivals this ending? Exit Vandam, enter Mithra. This cutscene is perfection! From the music, the atmosphere, the choreography of the battle, the character expressions, and even the foreshadowing. Every single component here has real weight to it. I especially love Vandam's voice actor here because he absolutely killed it with his deliveries. Even though the sad factor is neutered a bit by Mithra having one of the hypest introductions you'll ever see, the impact of Vandam's death is something that lingers with you for a long time. And said moment was so strong that it made me think, fuck, this game is gonna be without a doubt a masterpiece. A very flawed one, but still, a masterpiece. Yakuza. Oh, there's so many moments to choose from this series. The ending of Like a Dragon, Shinada's ending in Yakuza 5, the final moments of Yakuza 6, or maybe Yagami's redemption in Judgment. Nah, they're all good candidates of course, but if we talk about the one that hurt me the most, Yakuza 0. Where do I even start? Goro Majima is a character that everyone knows is batshit insane, and that was my first impression of him since I played Yakuza 3 and 4 before 0. So when I played the latter, I was surprised with how different he was. His relationship with Makoto was one that let me see a more humane side of him, and in consequence, I also ended up caring about Makoto. I was totally invested in these two characters and the relationship. As the story progressed, I found myself caring more and more. One of my favorite moments in the whole series is when Majima storms the Dojima building for what they did to Makoto, because that shit felt too personal. So once the ending arrives, Majima comes to accept that in order to protect the woman she loves, he must let her go. And this final scene had me bawling the whole way through because of how beautiful and tragic it is. Makoto is barely able to recognize Majima because she was blind the whole game, and the latter leaves just like that, so the fact that their final interaction was so depressing made me feel that way. depressed. However, Yakuza Kiwami 2 had the decency to give a more proper conclusion to this too with the Majima saga. And honestly, I don't remember much from this story other than the villain sucked and every cutscene related to Makoto. But really, that's all that matters. From their reunion to their final farewell where Makoto finally realizes who Majima is, it's all incredibly touching, and I think it closed this arc in the best possible way it could. But that doesn't mean it didn't hurt like fucking hell. Just as I was getting over Yakuza 0, Kiwami 2 had to reopen that wound. While it caused me a ton of emotional damage, these moments are some of the most touching in the whole series. Mother 3. Literally the whole game. Like, holy shit, this whole game left me an emotional train wreck. There's never a moment where your emotions aren't being toyed with. Mother 3 is an experience that constantly makes you reflect, makes you feel. As a game, it's incredibly enjoyable and fun, but it's the story, writing, and characters that make this one of the most unique video games in existence. From dealing with loss on the very first chapter, witnessing how society continuously gets worse as there's all artificial happiness, seeing how a kid copes with his family falling apart without a single line of dialogue, as well as many more moments where grief and reflection take place. I repeat, this whole game left me severely affected, even to this day. But if I had to pick just one moment, it's the final boss against the Masked Man. I can say, it's one of my favorite final bosses in any video game because of how it made me feel. This isn't a conventional battle where all your skills and knowledge are put to the test, no. This is a moment where Lucas can bring himself to fight his long-lost brother, how he refuses to kill the remaining family he has. It really puts into perspective how much he has experienced through the course of the game, and where his true feelings lie, as he desperately wants his brother to recover his humanity, and every line of dialogue strikes your emotions with full force. You feel them, you really feel every word that is said here. My breaking point being, Lucas isn't sure what to do anymore. This section is so heavy that even the music alone is enough to make anyone cry. And once the battle is over and Klaus draws his final breath, you don't even have time to rest, as you get an ending that leaves you with a lot of shock and fear. And sure, while it is known everyone is fine, that uncertainty of what really happened leaves you with an experience that is sure to follow you the rest of your days. But you know, even if it sounds like Mother 3 is a game that only exists to make you suffer, it's also one that makes you laugh, appreciate the better aspects of life, and deals with real topics in a believable way. You need to be mentally prepared for it. But damn it if it isn't one of the greatest video games ever created! Now, I'm finishing off with the game series that has caused me the biggest emotional pain. Pokémon. But wait! Mystery Dungeon. I remember becoming a fan of this series because I thought the concept was cool. Becoming a Pokémon, exploring mazes, and getting to know a bunch of different creatures, it was so attractive, and as a matter of fact, I still love the games. What I didn't expect though was the huge emotional damage these games will cause me, and that's an achievement. I played the first Mystery Dungeon game slightly after Sonic Adventure 2, and unlike that game, this one didn't have Spanish subtitles, but I was still able to figure out what was going on with the plot. And I have to admit, the ending where you disappear and then come back, it was sad, but nothing that broke me into tears, no. That honor goes to the Explorers games! Shit, where do I start? By this point, I already had an easier time understanding English, which was a huge help because the Explorers games had a bigger and more epic story. Every twist was hitting me harder than the last. Dusknoir betraying you and taking you to the future, Growell sacrificing himself to save you. That one hurt me on a different level because guess who's my favorite Hoenn starter? Come on, try to guess. And then you have the fucking ending. Ah! These final moments of the game feel hollow and empty because by that point, you know that by defeating Primal Dialga you're going to disappear. Like, you're gonna save the world, sure, but you're also slowly walking towards your demise, and you'd rather not tell your partner about it. So once that moment hits, I don't care! Even as an adult, this scene never gets any easier. It's tough when you realize your time has come, but the breaking point is when your partner catches up with what's going on and you see them struggle with the fact that you're disappearing and beg you to stay with them, while that fucking heartbreaking music plays in the background! And it doesn't stop there! You're still forced to see how your partner slowly returns back home while thinking about you and how they tell all your friends that you disappeared, and that hurts like fucking hell! Like sure, you return just fine after the credits because the Alga resurrects you, and that's a heartwarming scene. But for the longest time, the ending for the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explorers games has remained one of the saddest moments I've experienced in any video game. And guess what? There's even more. Explorers of Sky added an extra chapter called In the Future Darkness, where you get to see what happened to Grovyle and Dusknoir after they returned to the future. And this chapter is insanely good! But it hurts just as much! Because just like the endgame of the main campaign, it feels so hollow and empty because you know that by succeeding, these characters' lives will end. But there's still so much perfect writing that it makes it so memorable! You have Grovyle delivering an incredibly emotional speech about how life's true value comes from what you accomplish and not how long you live. There's also Dusknoir having a believable redemption. You heard me right! Dusknoir has a believable redemption! All these things make the ending all more painful! Nothing breaks me harder than the moment where...
I'm sorry, it always gets me.
The moment when Dusknoir asks Grovyle if his life's shown in the end, with the latter reassuring him that it did, and... Fuck! That had me bawling! And as the sun starts to rise, Grovyle and Celebi reflect on their final moments and how happy they are to feel the sun for the first time as they and everyone else vanish. Need I remind you this is a NieR rated game? Well, yeah, because in the end they all come back thanks to the intervention of Arceus. And sure, while that is an extremely convenient plot armor, it's still heartwarming to see. And that doesn't eliminate how perfectly crafted this extra chapter is. I lost account of the days I was emotionally affected by it. And if you think it stops there, we are not done. This series was created with the intent of making you suffer. Super Mystery Dungeon is our final stop. I'm aware this game is mixed among fans, but personally I love it with all its faults. I enjoyed the gameplay, I liked the music, I was invested in the world, and the story was very memorable with all its twists and turns. I mean, who can forget the Spur Ocelot? If you know, you know. But something I noticed is how much emphasis the story puts on your partner. Like sure, they have always been important and extremely lovable, but Super put them in a bigger light this time, and I like that. So comes the endgame, and at this point any veteran fan knows what to expect. They're gonna disappear in the end and get sad. So you defeat the final boss, later you and your partner are on a hill that screams, yep, this is the place where you will cry. And just when you're ready for the moment, a twist that nobody saw coming happens! Your partner is the one who has to disappear. Motherfuckers knew what they were doing when they made them more important! They turned the tables around and made an incredibly emotional moment that had me on tears for days! It was like knowing how your partner felt after they slowly returned home after you disappear in the Explorers games. But unlike those, your partner doesn't return after the credits. No! You see how their loss affected you and everyone around you, and you have to do extra story stuff for them to return. I can't help but respect the developers for breaking tradition. I especially love when your main character says, "This isn't how it was supposed to end," because I'm sure that's what all of us thought during this scene. This plot twist was so simple yet effective. I kid you not. Back when I first beat this game, just listening to the farewell theme was enough to demolish me. But god, it just goes to show how these games are experts at crafting heartbreaking moments. Literally the only problem they have is that they all pull a deus ex machina in order to fix everything. But not gonna lie, I believe they did that because these moments are so perfectly executed that they were forced to soften the blow, because otherwise this would have been objectively some of the most depressing endings to any video game ever. And we can't have that in E-rated games. Like, holy shit. Can you imagine the emotional trauma many of us would have grown with if they hadn't done what they did? I have plenty of those already, so no thanks. No need to add the extra weight. The hardest part about making this video is that I had to relive all those moments, and they hurt like fucking hell. My mind will get blocked because I will get sad. But you know, I'm not complaining. I love it when a video game makes me express emotions I don't usually show. It makes me feel alive, you know? Even if in the end I end up suffering. But that's what makes life so exciting. So, is there a video game moment that completely devastated you? Then you better let me know in the comments. As usual, I hope you consider supporting the channel in any way you can, and I especially hope you enjoy your time with this video. Have a wonderful day, and take care! I'll see you next time!